Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our sixth online event of the year. I hope you're all keeping safe and well, and that the first few days back of term 3 with all students back on site have passed off quietly enough. Before we start, I just want to run through our usual protocols for these events. First off, if you can leave your camera turned on but your microphone turned off in the main room, we'd appreciate that. Secondly, if you have questions to ask, feel free to use the chat function in Zoom to do so, and we'll try to answer the questions either through the chat or then verbally at the end if we have a little bit of time. The webinar is scheduled to last for approximately an hour and 15 minutes, and we'd ask that you try to give it your full attention during that time. And then finally, please do not record this event. The PDSC don't give permission for you to do so, and we will be making a recording of the presentation sections of tonight's webinar available on the PDSC website in the coming week. Tonight's webinar isn't the only support that we offer to you as TY coordinators, so if you would like to avail of school support, please apply through pdsc.ie/school support webpage. And to do so, you'll need your school roll number and the password that's up on screen there. Alternatively, you can email Esther at ty@pdsc.ie and she'll help you out with any query that you have and pass on that query to us. You might also like to follow us on Twitter. There's our Twitter handle on screen now. Glenda is very proactive at providing updates on events and various resources that are available for TY coordinators. So if you're inclined towards social media, that might be worth your time looking at. And then lastly, we have a TY page on the pdsc.ie website. So again, check in on that from time to time, and you might find some useful resources, recordings of the webinars and the slideshows and the Padlet discussions from throughout this year's events are an example of one of the resources which are up there. So the content of tonight's webinar moves the focus from the current academic year to next year, as we all know that a TY program doesn't spontaneously happen on the morning of September 1st. Indeed, it's most likely that a lot of planning has already been done on your part in this regard. So we're going to start off the webinar by giving you a chance to think about next year and to discuss it amongst yourselves. And we'll then go to 4 short inputs from the team, which we hope will be useful in informing your thinking about planning for next year. Once this is done, we'll return to our breakout rooms for an extended discussion, and you might bring some bits and pieces from the presentation sessions with you to this discussion. And we'll get some feedback from you, and then we'll be on our way into the beautiful evening that's out there. So let's start then with our first breakout room. So I'll shortly assign you to your breakout room, and as usual, just in case you get kicked out of the room or lose connection, please take a note of which room you're in before you join. When you enter the room, I'd ask that you unmute yourself and turn on your camera, and that you also take the chance to maybe introduce yourself and your school at the beginning to the other people in the room. We'd like to discuss any important issues with respect to your planning for next year, but what you actually discuss is really up to you and your colleagues within the room. If you're stuck for areas to think about, we've provided some suggestions on the left-hand column of the Padlet, and you can use those if you so wish. So Brendan has just pasted a link to the Padlet. Okay, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fine, Sue.
Okay, Grant. So Brendan has just pasted a link into the chat to the Padlet, which you'll use in the breakout sessions. So if one person could volunteer to record brief notes on the discussion in the designated space for each room, I'd appreciate it. And remember, the Padlet is intended as a resource for all those attending afterwards, so please try to communicate the main points as well as you can. And the initial discussion then will set the scene for the rest of tonight's event. So we'll take approximately 10 minutes in your breakout room. So if you just give me a minute to create the rooms. Okay, I'll open them now and in you go. And if you have any problems, please hit the ask for help button and I'll come in and I'll try to help you out with any issues that you have. Okay, I'll see you in about 10 minutes. Hi, Marina, can you hear me? If you can, maybe unmute yourself there. Hiya, you're very welcome. I've just put everybody into breakout rooms, so I'm going to assign you to one of them. The discussion has just started, so you can pick up on that when you get in. So you're going into room 10 now.
Okay.
Alison, can you hear me? If you can, maybe unmute yourself. And we'll figure out if you have problems joining the breakout room. Alison, can you hear me? Hi, Alison and Maura. How are you? Okay, Alison, if you want to unmute yourself there. Maura, similarly. So,
Hi.
good, thanks. You're very welcome. We've just gone into some breakout rooms. I'm going to assign you to some rooms and you can pick up on the discussion that's just started in there, if that's okay with everybody. Catherine, Etna and Claire, similarly, I'll assign you to the breakout rooms now in a second and you can go in there and pick up where things are at. Actually, before you do that, just let me paste a link into the chat for you because this is the link to the Padlet that we're using in the breakout room. So can you see that in the chat there?
Yeah, well, I could see it a minute ago.
Okay.
Oh, hang on, it's in the chat, is it?
Yeah, it's in the
sorry,
chat. So you, okay.
Yeah.
Grant,
Yeah.
so I'll assign Etna, Catherine and Maura, I'll assign you now and you'll be invited to join one of the rooms, okay?
Very much.
Okay, I'll see you back in a bit.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Nicola. Nicola, if you can hear me there, you might unmute yourself for a sec.
Hi, I'm here. Sorry, I'm late. I was just held up in school, so I'm only just home, and I just turned yourself on. So
You're grand.
Yeah.
You're grand. Relax there, and don't be worried at all. Come here. I've just pasted a link into the chat to a Padlet. Can you see it there in the chat?
yeah, I can.
Okay, and I've also just put people into breakout rooms, so I'm going to assign you to a breakout room now.
Would you mind, Stephen, leaving me be for 5 minutes? I literally, when I say I've got in the door, I just have,
Okay.
and I'll literally
Yeah.
give me time to get a cup of tea. I've turned
Oh,
you
yeah,
on so I
perfect,
can hear in the
perfect.
background.
Yeah,
and I'll
that's-
join the next one if that's okay.
Yeah, that's no problem. Just mute yourself there, Nicola, and you can join in then when you're ready.
Appreciate that. I appreciate
Okay.
that. Thank you.
No problem. Brendan, you're welcome. If you can hear me, maybe unmute yourself there. Hi, Pamela. If you can hear me, maybe unmute your microphone there. Can you hear me, Pamela? Oh, you're connecting to audio there. I can see it. Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now? You might unmute yourself. Hiya, Pamela.
Hi, yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry.
No, you're okay. Pamela, there's 40 seconds left on a breakout room discussion, just an initial kind of starter discussion. So I won't put you into a breakout room just for that 40 seconds. So if you just sit tight, the webinar will restart in about a minute and a half, and then I'll put you into a breakout room when the second part of the discussion starts. Is that okay?
That's perfect. Thanks a million. Sorry, I'm
Okay.
late as well.
Oh, you're grand. You're grand. We're all busy. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I hope that was a nice, soft introduction to tonight's webinar. For any of you who joined late and went into a breakout room automatically, I'm just pasting a link to the Padlet that you were using for discussion into the chat now, so you'll be able to access it when we come to the second breakout room. So we're going to go into a run now of 4 presentations by Glenda, Marcus, John and Brendan around various areas that we think are important to think about when you're planning for next year. So you can sit back for the next 20 to 25 minutes and listen to that valuable input. And I'd encourage you to take some notes maybe as you do, as you could use some of the points raised to feed into your discussion in the second breakout session. Okay, so without further ado, I'll hand you over to Glenda, who'll bring you through the first section about research on the TY experience.
Thank you, Stephen. So there's been a broad range of research carried out on transition year, from Egan and O'Reilly's 1979 evaluation to Clerkin's longitudinal study published in 2019. Additionally, there have been various articles in both academic journals and newspapers. As TY coordinators and teachers, we have a lot to gain by analysing this research in order to inform and enhance the TY programme preparation and experience within our various settings. Stephen is pasting the links into the chat for you now. Jeffers tells us that there is growing evidence that young people mature through the TY experience. Their confidence is boosted, career and life aspirations are clarified, voices are discovered, personal identity is enriched, engagement with the world beyond the school and capacity for action as citizens increases. This is echoed by Clerkin, who tells us that these experiences accelerate the development of a greater sense of responsibility in participants and provide a welcome opportunity to showcase their abilities, thereby underscoring the importance of including these opportunities when designing, planning and organising our programmes. John will explore the approach to design later. The chance to build team skills and work on collaborative projects with fellow students, teachers, and non-school organisations was, for most students, rarely available outside TY. The long-term impact of TY on those students who participate is often overlooked when discussing TY. However, this is an important consideration, as the stated aims of TY suggest that long-term outcomes were regarded as relevant by the original programme developers. A valuable aspect of Clerkin's research is to highlight the responses of past, present and incoming students. This may be particularly useful when giving information presentations to prospective TY students and their parents or guardians. 4 out of 5 TY students said that they were satisfied or happy with the year and would recommend TY to third-year students. 3/4 said that their school gave them enough information about TY before the beginning of the year. The main benefits which have been reported anecdotally in the past were confirmed by Clerkin's research, namely that students developed new friendships, increased confidence, made better Leaving Certificate subject choices, learned new skills, gained greater knowledge about their vocational aspirations, improved organisational, collaborative and self-management skills, benefited from seeing more links between their schoolwork and its application in the real world. Jeffers points out that bonding among students and between students and teachers in TY also appears to nurture valuable strengths and resilience for the challenges ahead, particularly in 5th and 6th year. Upon reflection on all aspects of his research, Clerkin distills his findings for teachers into 6 main points. We must engage with each finding so that we may use it to identify the what's going well and it would be better if moments for our own settings. We must provide sufficient information to junior cycle students so that they have clear understanding of TY. This may be done through presentations by the TY coordinator, past and present TY students. We must address the misconception of TY as a DOS, where students feel as though they're being left to drift, and highlight it as a break, the mark of a successful TY experience, a time where reduced pressure to study gives freedom for students to spend their time in other positive activities. This can be done by offering challenging, relevant activities and novel experiences both in and out of the classroom, a task which will be addressed by both Marcus and John later. For those students experiencing educational and socioeconomic disadvantage, and therefore more likely to avoid participating in TY, we need to provide targeted academic and financial support. Compulsory programmes in particular require very active student involvement. This may be achieved through regular assessment of activities and ongoing development of a portfolio containing achievements and learning experiences. The success of TY is particularly vulnerable to student expectations. Students need to feel busy and engaged with a broad range of experiences. Despite the various challenges that have been highlighted, it is important to note that 90% of students describe TY as a positive experience. As TY coordinators and teachers, our core purpose in engaging with our own small-scale, in-school reviews and large-scale accredited research is to equip ourselves with the tools to create and deliver a successful TY programme. Clarkin identifies three important factors in providing such a programme. Firstly, it must have clear direction and purpose, which requires careful and well-organised planning, to which Marcus will refer to in more detail. This can be supported by having a specific TY mission statement or purpose, which is clearly and simply identified to all. Secondly, activities are provided as promised, which means being realistic with our budget, which Brendan will examine later. Location, and realising the importance of not overselling. Thirdly, teachers take their engagement with and their delivery of TY seriously. To achieve this, TY must be valued by all stakeholders, including senior management, teachers, parents, and students. This perceived value must be underpinned by appropriate resources and expectations. Teachers need to be supported in accessing and, in some cases, developing their own material for TY. TY classes, rather than relying heavily on traditional Leaving Certificate resources. As Jeffers points out, TY is more dependent on having a particular person or group of people to drive the initiative within the school than any other programme. The importance of a committed and enthusiastic TY coordinator, or ideally a coordinating team, is crucial to the success of the year. Collaboration is required to ensure these three key markers of a successful TY programme are manifested in your particular setting. I will now hand over to Marcus, who will discuss the planning timeline.
Thank you, Glenda. Well, planning a timeline for TY will depend on many mitigating factors, one being whether TY is optional or compulsory in a school. However, there are similarities in how both models plan for the next school year. Our suggestions are presented here under three headings: reflection, promotion, and tasks. Again, as each TY programme is unique in response to the needs of the students in each school, the timeline is only a checklist or a rough reminder of how a coordinator could prepare for the next school year. We realise the restrictions brought about by the pandemic will have an impact as you plan for next year, but a suggestion would be to consider and envisage each step in a dual manner. How could it be done in face-to-face scenario, and how it could be done and delivered in the now more familiar online environment. The next slide there, Stephen, please. So as Glenda has said at the beginning of the webinar, a successful TY programme must have clear direction and purpose. Maintaining the awareness is paramount, and this has been noted by the Inspectorate, who stated that the most effective schools are those who have clear aims and objectives and carefully drawn up programmes and policies. This, coupled with a strong team spirit and a committed workforce, all contribute to the success and vibrancy of any TY programme. Jerry Jeffers reminds us of the importance of fine-tuning, which ensures that TY is a good experience for all. And of course, this requires careful planning, particularly on the part of the TY coordinator, the TY team and management, and with the assistance, of course, of all the relevant stakeholders. As TY coordinators, planning the next TY programme is never far from our thoughts. The suggested times mentioned in this section is cognizant of the fact that each school's context impacts on how we approach planning, and therefore there may be a need to add or subtract from our proposed list. Planning should commence with time for critical reflection, beginning in January, prior to the school year being planned. Coordinator and core team members should reflect on the present programme with the following themes in mind. A reflection on whether the TY vision and the TY aims still meet the requirements of the school ethos and the students' needs. There should be a reflection on whether the programme offers curriculum, coherence and balance. There should be a reflection of the allocation of time of the various elements in the programme, and ask what each subject brings to TY, and reflect on how it enhances the TY experience for students. And of course, there should be reflection and discussion around the area of budgeting of TY, which is another area of concern each year. Brendan will bring you through this aspect in more detail later. The programme often requires fine-tuning rather than any major reform, but it is well worthwhile to create this reflective space for you as coordinator and for the TY team, which should be followed by some discussion. Promoting the TY programme in your school in order to stimulate student interest in the programme should begin early in the year in preparation for senior options evening. It is always important to highlight the benefits of the TY programme, as supported in recent research highlighted there by Glenda. It is important that all the relevant material is prepared, a slideshow for students and for parents, update any promotional material like brochures, or perhaps the details available on the school website. Many schools organise their present TY students to display work, to speak to parents and to students, or to make short videos highlighting the various aspects of the TY programme. There is great insight into the present programme in a school when the student voice is heard, sharing their experiences of the TY. Many schools ask senior students now in 5th and 6th year to share their TY experiences in any presentation. Again, it's important that you deliver on what you are offering, as Glenda alluded to earlier, as this will enhance your programme going forward. Teachers should be consulted to see if there are any changes in focus in their programme that they will be delivering in the coming year. Again, fine-tuning rather than any major change often occurs. It's also important to maintain good communication links with the school management team, informing them of any changes or developments. The following list should be considered around April-May. Looking at your present policies and your documentation in the TY plan, it's wise to select some aspect of it for review. For example, the TY admission policy, if there's such a one in your programme. In schools where TY is optional, there may be a requirement to interview students in the event that the course is oversubscribed. When the list of students is made available of who will be in next year's TY cohort, it's all advisable for the coordinator to work in conjunction with the third year year head or class tutors when creating the class groupings for September. Discussions with guidance counsellors or school chaplains may yield information that will assist in getting to know relevant information about the new cohort. Where there are specific outside agencies who work with TY students each year, it's important that they are contacted to check their availability for the next year. Any resource or training requirements of the TY core team or the TY teachers should be identified and discussed with management. The calendar for the school year must be drafted, and major events, those particularly from Zone 4 in the subject layer, should be booked where possible, or at least penciled in. For example, team building activities or retreat dates or work experience dates, musicals, etc. Or those events that occur annually like the Young Scientist or YSI project. Where, depending on outside agencies, it is wise to have those dates set. For example, first aid or law courses, car maintenance, but of course, to be fine-tuned at the commencement of the school year. John will look at this in more detail in the next part of the presentation. Finally, returning to school in autumn usually begins with induction, and it's wise to timetable and prepare the relevant material and how it will be delivered. And with that, I'll pass you on to John.
Okay, so the efficient organisation is key to the success of the delivery of the TY programme. This involves collating the different organisational aspects to deliver an effective pathway of opportunity for all concerned. So, with regard to feedback and communication, it is important to have conversations with all stakeholders, including outside agencies, such as enterprise boards, local authorities, charity, voluntary organisations, to continuously find avenues that will enhance the teaching and learning in the transition year programme. TY coordinators sometimes feel they missed out on not having registered for a particular project or event. It is important to remain positive. Simple conversations with a provider delivering an existing project for the school could lead to another project or indeed another contact. Indeed, for example, lifting the phone and making contact with the environmental section of your local authority or a local manufacturer could open up avenues not thought of before. Communication and conversations always open up opportunities, including the breakout room discussions here tonight. They provide feedback on existing projects, enabling us to build on past experiences. So moving on to human resources, it is important that all stakeholders have an input into the transition year programme. Teachers provide feedback on existing modules, activities and excursions. It is important that this is collated and drawn on into the future. With respect to students, where we see the group dynamic and what direction it is leaning in the field of experiential learning, we can create an environment of shared ownership and vision. This could be achieved by compiling a group contract at the beginning of the year and possibly revisiting it towards the end of the first quarter to make adjustments if need be. Our management informed and proactive. This is incumbent on all information being shared with respect to communicating what is going on in transition year, creating interest and again ownership by all stakeholders. This can be achieved by the effective use of school platforms and social media, thus increasing the propensity by management and others to share ideas and create new avenues to maximise resources. Transition year should be on the agenda of every staff meeting, irrespective of time allocation, large or small. Parents are also valuable contributors with respect to ownership of the programme. It is important that they are made aware of how and what the school intends to deliver in the transition year programme at a presentation to them towards the end of third year. It is important that we value their input going forward to enrich the programme. Parents can be valuable contributors with respect to contacts in industry, providing specific modules, access to community resources, to name a few. Where parental involvement is more proactive, the outcomes in the transition year are more achievable and successful, as espoused by Jeffers, referenced by Glenda in her earlier presentation. Outside agencies can be instrumental in developing and nurturing the relationship to enrich the programme as part of the wider community. For example, transition year students in the school working proactively with the Tidy Towns Committee. So the effective use of overall resources. And I suppose if we look there, first of all, how do we know what skill sets are at our disposal? Well, I suppose we can look at that from the point of view of having conversations with staff, students, parents, people in the local community, see what their interests are in general and how they might contribute. With respect to students, certain students might have certain skills and attributes which they might be able to share with others. Staff may have certain skill sets which you may be able to incorporate as a module or a specific event. Equally as important to have this information collated for future reference, especially if there are changes in personnel or at some point you may decide to freshen up the whole programme. With respect to capabilities, it's important to nurture teaching and learning and be selective around situations and projects that are realistic. Where buildings are local community based or on site, it is important to have this information at your disposal together with contact details if needed. For example, some schools have the use of a local hall or GA club, which made it easier to monitor from a public health perspective during the pandemic. The effective use of various spaces in classrooms should be considered. It's important to have a collage of various equipment within the school and that of the local community to reference now or into the future. In general, focusing on an interdisciplinary approach is key to a successful programme as suggested by the Department of Education and Skills Transition Year Programme Guidance for Schools 1995. This can be achieved by compiling projects drawing on different subject areas, working logistically with the help of parents, teachers and outside agencies. An example of this might be an enterprise project where we may need expertise in a particular area of metalwork in a technology class. It may need the expertise of accountancy class for costings or markups. It may need the combination of English class and business class to write the business report. The project may also need some direction, expertise and advice from local industry or enterprises or even parents with specific expertise. It may also need to borrow specific equipment from local enterprise. So if you look at the programme overview itself and the different sections in it, I suppose, it's important that once it is set up, it can be adapted. And you can see it there in front of you. It is about recording all essential parts of the programme unique to your school setting. Overall, it's important to ensure alternative teaching and learning methodologies are pursued, both in subject areas and in co-curricular activities. And I suppose an important thing there is how is differentiation going to be addressed. And as well, a big thing in transition year is there one big event of the year that all students can work towards, be it 2 to 3 overnights with an adventure activities built in, again, clear, achievable, not spreading too thinly. Overall, having this documentation, as Marcus has pointed out in his earlier presentation, helps the reflection process enormously with respect to fine-tuning, where he has referenced Jerry Jefferson and overall enhancing the programme to bring positive change. It's also important to note that the PTSD website has more details with respect to writing the programme under resources, with particular reference to the transition year exploring planning document. Again, Stephen has referenced this earlier. So moving on to organisational details, again, having the documentation at hand maximises efficiency. And I can see there the second last with financial planning. Brendan will look at that later. But a very important one there, if you can see the second one down, main calendar of events or schedule events as we call it sometimes, is very important for staff to have access to and to have that set up as early as possible, as Mark has already said. This saves double booking, front-loading, backloading of the programme, both with respect to time of the year and content. And so moving on to timetable. The timetable should be inclusive. Staff, students, management, and parents, where appropriate, should play key roles in the effective delivery and communication of the effective delivery of modules, events, and day trips. It is important that there's a student-teacher contract, as mentioned earlier. This can have a positive impact with respect to direction. It is also important to note that we are always working from a strategic position and alterations are always possible, careful consideration. It should be balanced. Have we considered all aspects from practical, problem-solving, scientific, drama, creative writing, enterprise, to name a few? If it is not attainable on the official school timetable, then maybe we can fit it in day courses or use of voluntary groups to achieve the desired learning outcomes. There needs to be a certain amount of flexibility. We need to be aware that staff changes, resource changes can happen easily especially at the last minute. It's important that to be strategic in thinking, reorganizing, always keep a bank of information regarding staff and their flexibility with respect to their skill sets, as I mentioned earlier, and how certain modules could be delivered by dividing various units among staff and bringing it all together. With respect to an interdisciplinary approach, it is better to have 2 or 3 achievable projects as opposed to 10 projects that might not even get through many stages. Being realistic, as Glenda suggested earlier in her presentation. Overall, timetable should be part of a continuous conversation between teaching staff and coordinator, as well as between the coordinator and senior management throughout the year. What works well? What can be adapted? What new programs can be delivered? What skill sets are available? In a more formal setting, the core coordinating team can put all this together for negotiation with management and work done through a specific time frame, as Marcus has mentioned earlier. I will now hand you over to Brendan, who will look at budgeting and bookings.
Thanks, John, and good evening, everyone. So as John has mentioned, I'm going to take you through budgeting and booking side of TY planning and some important considerations for the TY coordinator when planning their TY programme. So careful budgeting and planning is vital to plan a TY programme effectively, and it'll be good to draw on your knowledge and experience as we move back to the breakout rooms later in our session. One of the most important considerations for the TY coordinator that will determine the TY budget is the school context. This is the first consideration in planning the TY programme and will determine the affordability of the programme for the community in which it serves. Obvious considerations, such as is the school in a disadvantaged area? Is it a private school? Or does it sit somewhere in between, like many ETB community or comprehensive schools? Other considerations, such as is the school in a rural or urban setting, will have a big impact on travel costs. Booking or hiring buses can be a significant drain on resources, and something that has to be considered when budgeting also. It is always advisable to make the most out of local resources and opportunities, as this is of course what makes each TY program unique, but also factors greatly into the cost and therefore the value of the program. Another very important consideration is whether the TY program is mandatory or not. Whilst there are advantages to both from the school's perspective, for example, a mandatory TY program will increase the student population in the school, increasing its capitation, but on the other hand, an optional TY program is preferable in many ways, as the students most interested in experiencing and capitalising on what TY has to offer will engage in it, therefore reducing many problems along the way, such as a lack of engagement. These factors will determine the price point and affordability that the TY program will aim to meet, which can range from anything between €60 and €600, depending on the school context. Something worth noting is that the majority of schools have an admin cost that is payable annually for photocopying, diaries, and things of that nature by parents. Some schools approach this differently in TY and absorb this cost within the program itself, whilst others do not. Where possible, it is beneficial to keep this cost separate from TY expenses, as the admin cost for students in the school is a separate cost and does not cease to exist when the student enters TY. There's a €95 capitation provided by the department for every student in transition year, payable to the school, which is dealt with in Circular Letter 5220. Where schools do not require payment of an admin fee, these schools often use this funding for that purpose, and the TY coordinator has no access to those funds. However, in schools where the admin cost is payable by parents, distinct from TY expenses, this €95 is often added to the money collected in TY expenses, then accessible by the coordinator for further opportunities that present themselves in the TY program itself. Of course, this again will depend on the school setting, and these options might seem as an unnecessary expense in many areas. Something that cannot be overstated is the importance of creating a detailed budget for transition year, with the caveat that it's subject to change. Not all the money has to be allocated ahead of time. A small amount can be set aside for opportunities that will arise throughout the year. But the more clarity there is in the TY plan, the more value parents will feel that they're getting for their TY expenses, which again will help curb non-payment. Non-payment is a serious challenge for all TY programs, and reducing this to an absolute minimum should be a priority for every school. In order to achieve this, parents should be engaged with as early as possible, with options such as flexible payment plans, and it should be communicated at every opportunity that if parents have a genuine concern or are finding it difficult to make these payments, they can confidentially alert the school, who can support them in a discreet manner. It is preferable to reach out to these parents in good time to ensure that they can avail of the financial supports available to them, such as St. Vincent de Paul or Bernardo's. Financial planning of the TY program can be greatly aided with the use of appropriate software such as Excel. It is a great aid to utilise a running budget as distinct from initial costings that have been planned for. Costs may change during the year, and a practical example of this is students that are absent the day of an activity, which would incur a lesser cost. It's important to map this to the budget and assess how much money may still be available for further opportunities. Having a contingency fund is vital for smooth running of the program, as costs may change or payments that are due may not be forthcoming. So a contingency fund of at least 5% is necessary, with 8 to 10% being a more desirable figure. The TY coordinator is a vital leadership role within the school. And when planning the TY program, again, there are many different approaches employed, but a novel idea is to allocate funds by department. Some schools will allocate a nominal amount to each department and asks that the department decide how they could get best value for their transition years. So, for example, the English department might choose to attend a play if funds allowed, and this may be a way of using a distributed leadership model and giving more autonomy to each department, whilst reducing the burden on TY coordinators, who can't be FA with every aspect of school life. Of course, with this model, keen oversight is needed to ensure that value for money is being had and perhaps a review of spending taken on an annual basis. But what this example serves to show us is the flexibility and the diversity that teachers and departments can bring to their TY programme. So when this forward planning and budgeting is complete, it should be communicated to parents as early as possible. And as Marcus referenced in his timeline, this information should be communicated to parents before the end of March. This will allow parents ample time to partake in a payment plan and to make informed decisions as to whether their son or daughter will avail of a place in TY. An important consideration is to avoid clashing with exam payments to lessen the burden on households and to ensure TY is not relegated down the priority list during these difficult times. Ideally, this information should be communicated to parents in advance of this. Excuse me. When communicating with parents, it is important to use the correct language and refer to these as TY expenses and not fees. So schools are not awash with money, despite popular belief, and clear communication showing that these are expenses incurred by their son or daughter, with a clear outline of the TY plan will help reduce any ambiguity and reduce the misconception that they're paying an arbitrary fee to the school. Many schools offer a school trip, either locally or internationally, and this is often seen as the highlight of the programme, and John mentioned that also. Experience has shown that this may be best planned as an optional extra and can only be availed of if the day-to-day expenses has been covered. This again helps reduce non-payment or fees, or perhaps just payment of that highlight trip itself. So I hope this has given you a broad overview of the areas to be cognizant of when planning the TY programme, and now I'll hand back to Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan, and thank you to all the team for the different inputs. As I always say at this stage, we're conscious of firing a lot of information at you. So I hope you took notes, and there's lots of questions coming into the chat there. So keep them coming and we'll answer them when we get a chance. I'd also encourage you to continue to take notes now as we move into the second part of our breakout discussion. And remember as well that we'll be making a recording of our presentation parts of the webinar available over the next week or so. So let's return to our breakout rooms now. You spent the first breakout about 10 minutes thinking around priorities for planning and questions that you have around that for your program for next year. So this breakout is intended to be a continuation of this process to give you more time and maybe to allow you to go a little bit deeper in your discussions as well. During the course of the presentations, it's possible that some additional ideas or questions have come to you. So again, use this opportunity to discuss those with your colleagues. If the person who acted as secretary during breakout one could please do so again and add any additional points to the designated space on the Padlet, I'd really appreciate that. And we'll call on maybe a few rooms at the end, depending on how much time we have, to give some feedback on specific points that they discuss. So again, I'd appreciate your input when the time comes from that. So again, feel free to discuss any issues. The suggestions in the left-hand column on the Padlet are exactly that. And I've repasted the link to the Padlet into the chat there for anybody who missed it the first time round. So I'll give you just shy of 20 minutes and I'll open them now and see you back here in the main room when you're done. Okay, right. We're short on time as usual, so I'm just going to finish off then, if that's okay, with a couple of slides, and we'll be done in 2 minutes time. So let me bring back up my PowerPoint. So just before we go into the final slide, I want to highlight a new module which is just about ready. It's around climate change. It's called Rewrite Climate, and it's an online self-directed module for students, which is hugely cross-curricular and focuses on the whole area of climate change and how students can get involved and make a difference within that whole area. So it's developed by a group called Cool Planet Experience, and if you want to find out more about it, Brendan should be pasting the link to their website into the chat there now, and the email contact. So it might be something worth looking at for your students for next year. And I suppose I've looked at it in a little bit of depth, and one of the things that I like is that, as well as it being kind of autonomous for students, there is huge scope within that to I guess extend the students' work and do group work with students at the direction of the teacher. So there's lots of scope for cross-curricular learning there. Second last slide then, just to remind you again that school support is available from one of the team. So you can apply through the official channels there, or if you'd prefer to kind of find out more first, please email Esther at ty@pdst.ie. And then our last slide is just to do a couple of things. The first is to ask you to take a couple of minutes and fill out an evaluation of tonight's event. Now, I purposely reduced the number of questions relating to tonight's event on the evaluation, because I'd actually like you to spend a couple of minutes identifying areas where you would appreciate additional support next year in our TY picnic and in our subsequent webinars as well. So if you take some time to do that, it would be really beneficial to us all, because it helps direct us in terms of where we're going for next year. And lastly, then, I just want to say thank you to a few different groups. I suppose this is actually our last webinar of the year, and I think it's a good time to thank the team for all the work they've put in putting these together while doing other work at the same time. So Glenda, John, Brendan and Marcus, thank you for all your work over the year. It's been a pleasure to work with you all, as always. And most importantly, then, I want to say thank you to all of you TY coordinators and teachers who have joined us over the course of the year at our various events, and who have engaged so fully with the discussions which have become a central part of these events. I never fail to be really astounded by the huge levels of energy, work and creativity that was obviously happening across all schools while we were dealing with so many other difficult situations. So well done, and thank you for all the work that you've put in over the course of the year. I hope you have a safe final term, and that you get a much deserved chance to rest and relax over the summer. And we'll really look forward to seeing you all face to face at some stage next year. So thank you and good night. We'll keep the meeting open for a couple of minutes if anybody has any questions, and after that we'll just close it off, and yeah, we'll see you again sometime soon.